Say it isn't so. Are Catherine and William getting a divorce? And what about Albert and Charlene of Monaco? Hello everyone, welcome to Royal News Network. My name is Brittany, and today we are talking about these royal divorce rumblings, particularly regarding Catherine and William and Albert and Charlene. And while one may have some very, very valid points, and I would not be surprised if the two of them split, the other one I'm like, where in the world is this coming from? We've had no indications at all that Catherine and William's marriage is on the rocks in the slightest. However, there is this rumor going around that started, I want to say almost in 2019, 2018, and has refused to die about William and this woman named Rose, and how I don't think there's any evidence to this story whatsoever, but it's a rumor that has refused to die. And we're going to dissect a little bit of that, and then we're also going to go through a bit about Albert and Charlene of Monaco. There are apparently some divorce might be in the cards for them, and I will have to say, if that turns out to be the case, I won't be surprised at all. Really not at all. And so I'll explain to you a bit why that might be the case. But if you guys haven't been here to Royal News Network before, like I said, my name is Brittany, and on this channel I provide compelling royal commentary about the latest news and sometimes a little bit of gossip as well. In addition, I will be reviewing television shows and movies and sharing a bit about history too. I'm in a program to get my PhD in history, focusing on British royal history, and I've been an avid royal watcher for over 10 years. So I love talking about royals, so if you're interested in subscribing, I would love to have you back. I also have a weekly newsletter, Royal Wire. I also have a fashion channel that'll be back in April. And then I also have a couple of trips upcoming to Europe. So if you're interested in that, I have one to London and the Cotswolds, which is all sold out. And I do have a couple on the wait list though, and I had one person drop out. So if you're interested, feel free to check that out as well. All right, guys. Catherine and William. Say it isn't so. Say it isn't so. There's not anything going on in their marriage, right? Well, as far as we know, the answer is no. But every time I tell people about this channel, or my parents do or something, they ask, oh, please tell me, Catherine and William, there's nothing going on with them, right? They're fine. They're fine. Everything's fine. And they're not getting a divorce. And I'm like, no. As far as I'm aware, the answer is no. But it's interesting that this question keeps coming up. And it all goes back to the supposed affair William had with a woman named Rose, whose husband is actually quite a prominent aristocrat. And he just actually got a new role as well. So her name is Rose Hanbury, and she married the Marquis of Cholmondeley, David Rock Savage. And so they were married in 2009. They have twins, and I believe they have another child as well. And he is also 23 years her senior. And so she was, I believe, a model at one point. This rumor first came up in about 2019, 2018 regarding William and Rose, because apparently Rose and Catherine had a falling out. They actually lived close to each other up in Norfolk, and apparently the two women had a falling out. Catherine and William actually went to an event at their house. So you actually see them interacting here. And Rose has been to state dinners along with her husband. And so this rumor that these women fell out somehow evolved into the catalyst being that William had an affair with Rose. Now, when it comes to aristocrats, I will say, and I feel like this has mostly been weeded out, but I think somewhat the culture is still there. It is not unsurprising that people within the aristocratic circles have affairs, particularly men. Now you got to remember, for centuries, bigger households, the ones that very influential households, noble households, marriages weren't made based on love. They were made based on alliances, based on business dealings, those sorts of things. So you didn't marry the person you loved, you married the person that your family needed and a connection with. And so I feel like there was much more of a culture of acceptance that was part of the practice. Obviously, some wives were really against it, and but it did happen quite a bit, especially in royal circles, because the alliances were even bigger. And obviously the mistresses sometimes had their own palaces, they got titles. It was very much something that happened within that culture. However, mostly that has died, because now most marriages are made on love connection. So that's not as much of an issue, but it's still there. So all that to say, I feel like if William perhaps had an affair, would that necessarily be super surprising? No, I don't think it would be. I know that's for some people that really burst their bubbles, but I wouldn't necessarily be a surprise. Apparently, I've heard rumors during his younger years that he would cheat on Kate, and that wouldn't be, again, completely a surprise. And it's also been rumored that William had actually a crush on somebody else. It was actually Cressida Bonus's older sister, Isabella Colthrop. She had like 3 last names. And she ended up marrying Sam Branson. You got to understand as well. And there's also William's a really good friend, Jekka Craig. There was also a bunch of rumors, because she's also a tall, lanky brunette, that William perhaps had a crush on her. I think they maybe have dated, but it's been so long since I've heard about Jekka, I'm not even sure. And so it's not, again, outside the realm of possibility whatsoever. And I will also say, during the early years of their marriage, I felt like they were in rougher places at times, I think, because of the pressure. Catherine didn't quite know what to do. She had this huge new role, and I'm sure she was deeply nervous. William was deeply nervous as he became more and more of a force within the royal family. And so I think there were a lot of growing pains together, perhaps during their initial years of marriage, and then you have the kids and everything. But about 5 years ago, once Catherine had Louis, I felt like Catherine and William were completely settled. They were a unit together. You didn't really see, there was a couple of instances in Poland where Catherine and William looked like perhaps they were having a fight right before an event. And again, this is not to say everybody goes through hardships in their relationship. Obviously, that's completely and totally understandable. But I felt like ever since then, Catherine and William always look like they're on the same page. They always look like they're in sync. And so I don't really put a lot of credence behind the rumors. But then this issue with Rose came up, and then somehow this issue evolved into William having an affair with Rose, and this has just gone on and on and on and on. I mean, it's been 4 years or so since this rumor first came out, and it refuses to die. And now you could say that there is truth to the rumor, and that's why it refuses to die. But at this point, I really feel like William has so much on his plate. Would he really have time to have a full-blown affair with somebody else? Especially somebody who doesn't live near him now. They live in separate places. And again, Catherine and Rose could have fallen out over anything. It could have been the kids. It could have been that they didn't like how somebody did something, and then it just kind of blew up, or they just became distant because after a while they were initially friendly, and then they realized they just didn't have that much in common. And so there were a lot of things that could have been the case there. And I think it's really important to notice that, again, Catherine and William seem to be completely in sync. They seem completely together, united in so many ways. And I think perhaps Meghan Markle helped with that a lot of ways, because Meghan Markle gave them, you could say, a common enemy, a common person to be against. And so even sometimes when things were difficult, that perhaps they were able to come together a bit more. And again, I will say, again, these are just rumors that I've heard on different forums and stuff like that, you know, William perhaps was hoping maybe somebody else would come along, but it ended up being Catherine. But I think at the end of the day, William is exceptionally pleased with his choice. I think he took the time, made sure it was right for Catherine, right for him. And I think we'll just see their marriage go from strength to strength. I do not see them ever divorcing. Now, again, somebody could have a midlife crisis, something could happen and completely change their relationship. But I think what attracts William to Catherine in a lot of ways as well is her family and her solid upbringing. And I think that's something he deeply values in their relationship as their children get older. And I think they are good partners for each other. And I think they're good friends as well. Great marriages, I think, are based around the foundation of good friendship. So if you don't like to do things in common, if you're not really all that alike, I don't think you have the longevity compared to some other relationships, especially as you get older. Now, if you're younger, you can develop interests together, of course. But if you're older, Catherine and William were almost 30 when they got married, you already have pretty much your interests. And although they have been dating together and stuff, since they weren't married, they still could have their different interests. But I think they are definitely a strong parental unit. And I think they deeply, deeply value their family and value their family time. So I think the divorce rumors are that, rumors. But when it comes to Charlene and Albert, ooh, now that is a couple who I am shocked even made it this long. And I would say probably a good chunk of it is due to money. Probably. So Princess Charlene, she was originally from South Africa. She married Prince Albert of Monaco in 2011, not too long after Catherine and William got married. And even before the wedding, there were rumors that she was trying to escape to France, because Monaco is a separate country, it's a principality. And so she was trying to get to France, she was trying to fly out, her passport was confiscated, that she did not want to go through with the wedding. And Albert is a bit of a cad, so he has 2 illegitimate children at least, and he also just seems to wander from woman to woman and is not really very faithful. And so Charlene at her wedding, she was crying, and most people thought, that's not tears tears of happiness. That looks like tears of sadness. And obviously it was a huge day. Albert needed to get married. He needed to have kids, like legitimate children, to carry on his line. Otherwise it would go to Princess Caroline's first son, Andrea. And so it was something that he had to do at some point, and Charlene was the person who stuck around long enough to do it. Now the question is, are they still together, and will they still be together in the future? Now, for the first couple years of their marriage, Charlene was pretty good about going to most things. She went to, I believe it was Crown Princess Victoria's wedding in 2010. She did not go, I believe, to Catherine and William's wedding. She did go to Catherine and William's wedding, but after about the first year or two of her marriage, you really didn't see her at any big events. In Europe, Albert would always go, but he was always solo, so his wife would never go with him. And then they ended up having twins, so that's Jacques and Gabriella. And during the early time of COVID, I believe it was 2021, Charlene ended up going to South Africa because that's where she's from, and she ended up getting very, very sick. There was something with her ears. She went to a lot of ear, nose, and throat doctors, and she lived in Africa for about 6 months. And when she came back at some point, she was skeletal. She was, you could just tell, very, very ill. And the question was, like, is it really the ear, nose, and throat thing? Like, what's going on here? And Albert was in Monaco, basically raising his children by himself. And when she came back to Monaco, she went to a different hospital for a period of time as well. We did see her at Monaco National Day in November, but she has been very much somebody who's behind the scenes. Even today, recently, we had the Rose Dinner, and who showed up? Why, it was Princess Caroline, who I think is really the face of the Rose Dinner, and Albert. So they are always each other's guests. And then Caroline's children, because she has adult children. So that's Andrea, Pierre, Charlotte, and Alexandra, and their spouses or partners. And so it was really interesting to see that compared to what's going on with him and Charlene, because apparently Charlene was recently seen without her wedding ring. Now that doesn't mean anything, because people wash their hands and they need to take it off. They have some sort of procedure and they need to take it off. So there's a myriad of reasons why Charlene maybe perhaps was not wearing her wedding ring. Is their marriage on good footing though? I don't think so. I really don't. They don't have anything in common, really, now, besides their children. They have nothing tying them together, really, except for the crown of Monaco. And although that is a really, really huge temptation, and Monaco has a lot of money, I'm sure Albert wears thin on Charlene, or Charlene wears thin on Albert, or there's something going on behind the scenes. I'm not quite sure exactly what it is, but again, I don't see them making it long term. Now, when it comes to the Principality of Monaco, it's well known for not having necessarily the best history in terms of love and marriages, especially this most recent generation. So you have Albert, who has been married to now Charlene for over 10 years, but he had relationships and affairs with lots of other women leading up to that, including 2 illegitimate children. And then you have Princess Caroline. So she married her first husband, got divorced after a couple years. Her second husband sadly passed away after they had 3 children, and her youngest child, I believe, was about 1 when that happened. He was killed in a boating accident. And then she got married to her most recent husband, which was Ernst of Hanover, and he does not have the best reputation. And they are still technically married, but they haven't been seen together, I think, in 15 years. And so she has raised their daughter mostly by herself, and her daughter was the product. They got married after she was pregnant, and Caroline at the time was best friends with Ernst's wife. So she broke up the marriage. They got married. They lasted a couple of years. He was there at a couple of Monaco National Days, and he's mostly disappeared. So Ernst is a hereditary prince of Hanover, so he controls a lot of the Hanover estates. And I think his son now has a title heredity too. Anyways, he does not have the best reputation. He is known to drink quite a bit, and he had to actually give up control of most of the Hanover estate to his oldest son, who has been managing it and gave it part of one of the castles back to the country, and Ernst was very upset about that. And his son's like, we've got bills to pay. You have millions of dollars in debt. I gotta offload something. These castles are very expensive to upkeep and maintain. And so he had to give it back up to the state, who could hopefully take care of it, and Ernst was just not happy. But again, this is what happens with these big families, is that once they lose their land, their title, their influence, they sometimes do have some of their major homes, but they can't keep up with the upkeep for whatever reason. And so he's been very diligent about remanaging the assets that the Hanover family has. But you get back to then the youngest child, so that's Princess Stephanie. She was actually in the car with her mom when they had their accident, and she has had a couple of marriages. I believe 2, both have ended in divorce, and then she also tried to escape to the circus. Yes, she did. So they've not been very lucky in love. And I think you see Charlene pretty much at every event looks pretty miserable. Albert's plus one is always his sister Caroline pretty much to every event. Charlene comes out and does things from time to time, but it's very much limited. She came out after these rumors were announced, but I just really feel like Charlene is just not in it at all. And so if they got divorced for some reason, would I be surprised? No. And you gotta remember, obviously people go through challenges and hardships, but we even had Crown Princess Victoria and her husband Daniel had to announce that they were not getting divorced after a lot of rumors surfaced about them. So this is not a pleasant topic, I don't think, with any family, especially if the couple are actually having difficulties. And I won't say that's really the case with Catherine and William. Again, I will say I think they're solid. I don't see divorce coming in the future at all, especially given all the pressure that they're under now with Harry and Meghan leaving and the future really being on their shoulders. I'm sure that's causing a lot of tension in their marriage in some aspects, but it's also making them more of a unit, more united, because they have to stay together. There's no in or out. You're in, and that's it. And I think that's, to a certain extent, that pressure perhaps is somewhat good, because that means even though you come through rough patches, you have to work through them and move forward. That's the only way you can continue on. And so I think Catherine and William are in that space. But Charlene and Albert, if they get divorced, again, it would not be a surprise. I don't think that would impact their children's place in the line of succession. So I think that would be fine. But obviously Albert spends a lot of time. It's difficult to tell with Albert because obviously his relationships don't go well in terms of women he's romantically attached to, but he appears to have good relationships with his nieces and nephews and his sisters, and his children have a good relationship with their much older cousins. And so it's just really an interesting dynamic to think about, but it's also rather sad. I do feel sad that the kids don't have perhaps a stable home life, and that their mom was gone for almost a year. It was a long time that Charlene was in and out of hospitals. Obviously she did have health issues, but there's a lot of questions too about what was really going on and if this was all a cry for help to get out of the marriage. So they're putting on a united, brave face for now, but if you ever hear divorce proceedings going on for Albert and Charlene, I don't think anybody would necessarily be super surprised by that. So guys, let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what you think of the crazy William and Rose rumors. I forgot to add as well, a lot of people think that Meghan and her camp are stirring those up. I think to a certain extent that's somewhat true. But if you're having to resort to that, you can just tell the other royal marriages I think could be possibly definitely in the future just somehow crumbling is probably Harry and Meghan's, because I don't think they have a solid foundation of same things as well. Harry's given up his whole life, all his hobbies, everything to please Meg. That is not the recipe for a successful marriage either. So guys, let me know again what you think. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.